Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this time slot. Happy to see you again. So indeed, there will be myself presenting the European campaign in which we have been involved in France, and Marion will be presenting a family-friendly company label that we have developed and launched for companies to integrate more parenting in private companies. Okay, now?
Yeah, we can.
Yes? Okay, great. I'll make it just bigger. So just to give some background, so there are a few slides, so I will go through it. It's just to provide you some updates on an existing European campaign, which is about early childhood development. It's called First Years, First Priority. The key thing is currently deployed, implemented in 9 countries in Europe, from, I would say, Ireland, Finland, France, Spain, Portugal, but also countries in Eastern Europe, like Romania, Serbia, and yeah, and that's it. Hungary, sorry. So generally speaking, the idea is to change the outlook for very young children and also their families, and to really focus not only on early childhood, which is from 0 to 6, but to really focus on the children below 3 years old. Because whether we have a split system or not, which is the case, for example, in France, we have very less attention on children under 3 years old than the older one. So just to give you a bit of background, this campaign is actually European-wide, but obviously even if we have the same vision, the stakes are not the same in all the 9 countries. So that's why the mission is to ensure an equitable inclusion of all the children from the very early years, and to provide some quality support for parents, for families, especially in the most vulnerable situations. When we're talking about vulnerable situations, it's about, of course, poverty, but it's also about disability and also about migrant populations or home populations. So it's so that's the overall vision of the campaign. However, in France, obviously, with as Nathalie, I think, presented a while ago about and the great contribution that you have done, Nick, Rob, and Pasco and Gabriela. We raised this report on the first 1,000 days of life. And from there, there's been some governmental measures that have been taken about the first 1,000 days of life. So obviously, it's not the same in all the countries. So the idea was to further embed on that public policy in France, but to mostly focus also on the most vulnerable families. And that's been really an important influencing power of this campaign, is to further push for some to include all children and to leave no children behind, and to really have this universalism proportionate approach, which is obviously to address all needs, but to have some specific targeted interventions for some of them. The second idea was to have a more preventive approach in ECD, because we are in France with more of a curative approach. So the idea was to have a more preventive, integrated, and holistic approach of the early years. And last but not least is to provide a comprehensive and coordinated integrated ECD framework. And you can see here this graph. That's been the 6 policy domains that the campaign is focusing on. Depending on the countries, it can differ. In France, obviously, we have some different policies available. So for child protection, for maternal and child health, but what is really needed is this cross-sectoral coordination for ECD, because we are working still in silos. So the idea is to, and obviously at national level, we have some interministerial strategies, some interministerial meetings, etc. But what happens is that in the field, at regional or departmental level and in the field, there's little coordination, and there's still some very strong silos on who is responsible for child protection, which is the departments, and who is responsible for ECEC, so the early learning aspects. So the overall frame of this campaign is to really have an integrated ECD framework. Member states within, because this campaign has been done within the frame of what is called the European Child Guarantee, which has been adopted by the EU Commission back in May this year. So now that has been adopted, all the member states will have up until March next year to deliver what we call a national plan, which is up to 2030, a vision of 2030. So a long-term plan, which shall include all those aspects. So that's a very important momentum for France, in particular given to the fact that that will be the French presidency of the EU from January up to July, and also that will be the French presidential elections. So that's a very important momentum to push. I mean, recently we had the President Macron, who made a pitch about his vision of this French presidency. And I mean, there's still some push to be done on early childhood, on the early years, and why it's important. Because we always think about the next young generation, but not the very early years. So here it's just to present, that's a very busy slide, so I won't go through it in details, but it's just to show you the different frames that this campaign, be it at European level or at local level, will be aligned, because it's obviously addresses how can we better influence public policies at European level, but also at national level, and to further ask for public investment. And that's one important aspect, because obviously they are the national funds, but they are also the European funds that will be delivered through this European Child Guarantee. So the idea is and there are different funds available to address also the specific needs for migrants, for example. So those are the valuable, and to consider the ecosystem around the child and the family, and to have, obviously, as mentioned earlier, about this coherence between child policies and family policies, because in France, that's somehow still being in silos. And obviously in France, we'll be focusing also on the first 1,000 days of life. So here, just to provide you some mechanism, because that's been a good leverage to have European and national influences, not only at top down, but also a bottom up advocacy aspects. So that will further bring greater visibility to the early years. And that's the same in all other 8 other countries involved in the campaign. So, I mean, this is a very busy slide too, but this is what we can call a domino effect on what are the different strategies that are being taken under this campaign, how does it work, and what it should ultimately impact, and how it should be ultimately impact. So this is mostly about civil society, which is a strong power and which needs to be, I would say, enhanced from a power perspective to influence not only European policies, but also national policies. And that's been a strong work that we have done this year, being a coordinator of this campaign in France, on how can we further bring together different civil society actors and have them also being ambassador of the early years, no matter what their expertise lies on. And how can we facilitate the capacity building of all these, I would say, ambassadors of early childhood development, so that it's not only a specific expertise of Eduensemble or some other actors, but it's actually a subject that should lie within the old society. And why not integrating, and Marion will be talking to you afterwards about private companies, but they are the kind of unusual advocates that might be in the future be part of this national coalition that we have set up, and how they can further be the advocate of the early years in France. So, so here just to show you, because that's been really a very, I would say, work together, co-acting and interacting between not only at European level, at national level, but it's mostly at national in France. What we have done is to have set up, you can see here in the first work package, how we have built this national coalition on early childhood, and to bring different expertise. So we have, for example, Red Cross, the French Red Cross, which has been involved. We have other organizations involved. So to really work together on how can we further advocate based on each our on-the-ground experiences, how can we further advocate not only early learning, not only about maternal and child health, or not only about child protection, but how can we work together, and knowing that we need to work together and not in silos anymore. And then we've worked on this work package 2 here, which is about obviously, because this is about advocacy, and to create some country profile on how, on some key figures and key facts on each of the 6 domains that we have displayed earlier. And then thereafter, there's been a cross-country analysis which has been done. And some key elements is that not only very young children under 3 years old are very not visible in the data, in the statistics. So we consider child poverty, but it's child poverty taken into consideration from 0 to 18 years old. Very less detailed data on what about children under 6 or even under 3 years old. And there's been also some, so when we're talking in France, we have 1 out of 5 children in poverty, living in poverty, but these are rough data. And in France, there's been a huge investment that will need to be done to have some data-driven strategy, because usually we implement some policies, but we don't know what are the effects of these policies on what are the figures and the impact on the figures. And last but not least, to create some advocacy documents, not only towards the public, the general public, but mostly also to widespread science-based and evidence-based science to the policymakers at all levels, not only at national levels, but at all levels, including municipality level. So that's been one of the targets. So here you can see the three pillars of the campaign that I mentioned, and ultimately what we have. So you can see here within the national coalition all the different actors that have been involved. So we have 13 associations, but also federations in the all national territories. So we have home visiting, I would say, experts in this. So they're very close to families. We have CNAP, which is about child protection. We have, I would say, child's rights approach. We have organizations working in mostly looking in the ground in what we call social hotels. So for families who do not have yet any, I would say, accommodation, but they have been assigned to emergency hotels, social hotels, emergency accommodations. And we have Stop Violence, which is about adverse childhood experiences also. And we have MOMART, which is about cultural aspects from the very early years. So that's been really a great achievement in France to gather all those different expertise. They don't have any specific early childhood, but they do believe in early childhood. And that's what is really do together and how can we act together. In France, we have set up also this country profile. As I mentioned, very few data. So fact-based, it's a real improvement that we have drawn. And recently in October, we have launched together with the National Coalition this advocacy document, which is some kind of umbrella document that we agreed on all together upon about what are the key strategic guidelines in which we will be working from now, either in the field with some concrete actions in the field. And one example is I would say the first thousands of life houses that we are going to set up to give some one stopover resource for parents or for future parents for about the child development, and or some specific advocacy, some other actions that the National Coalition would like to take on. It's about, for example, to have some specific advocacy document for municipality elected officials, so that they know what they can do at municipality level. Because in France, it's all about states, and the idea is to bring from the ground and from the needs of the beneficiaries in the municipality, what can be done concretely speaking.
Can you see it?
Yep. Yes, you can see, thank you.
Okay, great. So yeah, as Aurélia said, I'm working with her on at the organization Ensemble pour l'éducation de la petite enfance, and more particular, I'm working on the family-friendly company label. So I'll be happy to present to all of you the first steps of the label. So we had a 1-year fast test, and we just labeled the first companies in November. So this label is about sharing the idea that parenting support benefits children, parents, and the whole society. Children, because as we said, and we all know, the first 1,000 days represent a crucial period in the child development, and it is also the time when inequalities are growing. Parents, because parenthood in a company represents a strategic issue for any company. So I mean professional equality, quality work life, commitment and well-being of employees, performance, etc. And as we all know, the earlier you invest in a child's life, the greater the economic benefits. So this is the study of James Ekman. So the mission of the label, it's based on the report of the 1,000 Days Commission, which Aurélia presented. So this report highlights the importance of investing in early childhood in the 1,000 first days. So it's an initiative from our organization in partnership with the French Ministry of Health. So the labeling process is an invitation to companies to innovate in order to better take into account the recent knowledge on child development, also with the science and all the new studies, and to meet the new needs of employee parents through concrete measures. So the label aims to educate managers and employees about the challenges of parenthood in the company, to consolidate good practices in favor of reconciling lives in companies also, optimize the impact of family policy, and identify the levers of implementation to meet new societal challenges. So the labeling process, basically, it's based on an employer audit, which is qualitative, around 6 levels. So we have family policy, managerial culture, work organization, leave policy, services for employees, and specific support. So the audit is about 100 questions. And then we have the employee survey, which takes around 10 minutes for the employee to fill in. And this labeling process is led by a reference person in the company. So why this label? Because we have this sentence, it takes a village to educate a child. And company in this whole ecosystem have a crucial role to play in building the world of tomorrow. So in particular, this means better taking into account children and their parents' needs in order to provide the most appropriate responses. And the health and economic crisis that we are knowing reinforces the awareness and the needs to act early for the well-being of parents, their family, and as we saw, for our society in general. So there are many benefits for companies to invest in supporting parenthood. First, promote professional equality between men and women, promote the quality of life at work, enhance its employer brand, retaining tomorrow's talents, enrich its CSR commitments, contribute to having a positive impact on the world, boosting economic performance, and contribute to the common good.
Can I interrupt and ask what CSR stands for?
Sorry?
you had enriched CSR commitment. What is CSR?
It is
Excuse
in
my
French,
ignorance.
the responsibility, the social responsibility for companies.
Corporate social responsibility. Yeah.
Corporate, thank you, Aurélia.
Right, thank you.
Okay. So those are the first three companies that we labelized, and those are our partners. I'll just add that this label has been developed with an expert committee, which bring together other labels such as Great Place to Work. They are working on well-being at work. There are also organizations working with families and children, so we can better understand parents' needs and the children, so the parents' need at their workplaces. And we also have international labels who are working directly on those topics. So we have Concilivi in Canada, and we also have family-friendly workplaces in Australia. So this label has been built with this particular philosophy to value every step taken by the company, not also long-term measures such as a longer parental leave than the legal framework, for example, but this label also requires simple measures such as strong communication. So we can include every company that are with measures that are accessible to each company. So at the end of the process, we can share a labeling report with the company. So we have details on the 6 levers. So that's the reason why the companies can identify the levels of transformation and see how they can better take into account the employee and parents' needs.